You know, why do they call it the anti-spell event when we don't set spell cards for a turn before using them? They just ban all the spell cards. You know, this is really just the Imperial Order event. Okay, so anyways, I know the majority of decks that people own right now are probably unusable at this event, so I'm just gonna share a few decks I have that I think are at least good enough to get the free gems at this event, with varying price levels and varying UR needed for funding. So first one, first deck I think is gonna be good enough for this event is Tri-Brigade. Namely, there's no tanky, so I opted to run both the Ancient Warrior engine and Rescue Cats, just to get enough starters. If you own the Tri-Brigade engine, you know, you probably have access to most of these cards already. You probably also have Cat, since that's the more popular Tri-Brigade version, and the Ancient Warrior stuff is just super rare, so it's not really that much of a investment. Lightheart is from the new selection pack, and because no spells, we have more room for tech space, so I think there might be a bit more back row, so we play triple evenly and Archfiend Eccentric as well. You don't have cat for as in UR, you don't need cat either. You can just put in more Archfiend Eccentrics and more hand traps. Still running the branded engine because, well, we need to fill the space with something, and the branded engine is still nice in this deck because it's still 2 free cards, and we always put back cards with Fairjeet and Bearworm in this deck anyways, so any free cards have uses. It's nothing really much to say. It's just a fairly standard Tri-Brigade deck. Only really lost 2 tanky as the main hit of this deck in this event, so I think this is perfectly viable. Next up, we got the War Crime Zoodiac itself. Once again, the main thing this deck really just lost was just tanky, and I guess Pot of Desires, which is nice, but again, this is a blind second Zoodiac build with triple evenly and a lot of hand traps and Alpha and Pank. You don't need all of these going second cards. These can be filled up with more hand traps of your choice. Same with Shifter. You can put in more Crows if you expect Eldritch, which is not banned, although there's no floodgates. And they still only have 1 conch, so I'm not sure how good that deck actually is. The loners, one of the loners has Dinos and Misk, so if you want, you can do Lancia as well. Right now, basically the core is just Zoodiac monsters, and then hand traps we can just put in to adjust based on what we see during the event. Because those are really the most flexible part of the deck. You can add more combos to be able to recycle your Zoodiac monsters. I mean, yeah, this is just really straightforward. Like, just put in as many going second cards you own as you can, plus like a decent Zoodiac core. I would say at least 12 Zoodiac monsters or more. Once again, Eccentric, you know, I don't own Pankratops, so you can put the Eccentrics in for those. These Shifters could be Lancias. And more copies of Crow, maybe. Ghost Ogre. Yeah, etc. Oh, also, Ram really rocks. negating negating trap targeting effects. You know, they try to compulse your zoo monster, your zoo Xyz. Nah. Next, I'm sure this is another common deck that a lot of people will own if you were playing when this selection pack was released. And then on top of these Sword Souls. Now, Sword Soul losing the Rhoda kind of hurts, but that was the really only necessary spell. There's stuff like Desires, which is not necessary, like Dragon Circle, which is optional. You still have the core of your plays, which are Tenyis and Moyes. And Taya is a little less consistent because you can't just emergence for Taya and make that live. And honestly, you might consider just dropping this to 1 because you don't have to worry about banishing it off Desires anymore. Oh yeah, this is another deck where you replace all the lost spells with more hand traps. Add another copy of Blackout because you know sometimes when your Moya gets imperm but you have access to the long end, you can banish the Blackout to still make double synchros, and then you still have another Blackout for later. Evenly matched, if you haven't figured already, I think is going to be a pretty decent card this format, especially against anything backrow related. And it's, you know, no Duster, no Lightning Storm, none of that stuff. This is the main form of mass removal we'll have available. Yeah, and Ogre's pretty an okay card, especially if more people are going to be on Sword Soul. Is at least nice than making a synchro with just 1 card. And obviously you can't run Lancia in this deck because you know Lancia plus Chi-Shao is negative synergy. Yeah, just a fairly standard Sword Soul list. Replace spells with hand traps and evenlies. Alright, hands up all you D-Gen Traptrix players, if you were excited to hear about the no spell event. Yeah, I was like, do I own a deck that basically plays no spells in all back row, and it's largely unhit this event? Yeah, well, actually, Judgment to 1 and Strike to 2 kind of hurt, because I suspect a lot of people will be playing more back row hate cards, so it might suck to get even lead. Maybe I'll consider something like Wiretap. Yeah, maybe actually. Counter the trap matchup. It's okay against trap matchups and counters evenly. We'll see though. We're running as a lot of Traptrix monsters because we just want to open. You gotta open 1 Traptrix monster now. There's no pots to dig into them, so you need one to make Sarah. Lore of Heavenly Prison might seem weird because most of the destruction based spell trap removal is for spells, so they're unusable, and a lot of removal, like I said, is like evenly. But honestly or not, you're really using this as back row protection. You're using this as basically like a slow extender. Like ideally you go, if you don't have Parallel Exceed or Shade Brigadine, or even if you do, you can make Gallant Granite and search a Lord of Heavenly Prison if you don't already have it. That way you can summon Lord on your opponent's turn and then set something like an Ice Dragons or Shade Brigadine, which then on the next turn it triggers. You flip it to get a body, and then you can also trigger Sarah to get another body, and that's actually just an OTK with just Sarah and Lord of the Heavenly Prison. You climb into access code and have a Lord on the field for 83. The 1 Aatrax, because, well, I mean, I figured you could run this as the 12th Traptrix monster as a tech option, since you can do a line with Kularia. As most Traptrix players know, that you could have Sarah, maybe a Rafflesia if you open both of these, but if not, you can just have Sarah and Kularia, and Kularia's end phase special summons Mantis. So with obviously you have a Floodgate Trap Hole set or a Gravedigger Trap Hole set, whichever one you prefer. Then on your opponent's turn, you flip your Floodgate, you flip your Trap Hole, Kularia will reset the Trap Hole, and Sarah will trigger to summon Traptrix from your deck, and then Mantis quick effect, you bounce the Trap Hole you just used and reset with Kularia, you bounce it back to your hand, and then Traptrix will let you reuse the Trap Hole a second time on the same turn. And you know, there was a lot of metas where the Trap Holes just weren't even that good to begin with, to be honest, but I figured this is a nice fun casual event. We get to actually do a combo with Traptrix that I haven't done in months, so I'm excited to do that again. Extra deck is just really any rank 4s you have. Like I'm running the Utopia package for memes, because sometimes this deck struggles getting over big monsters. Like you can't really link spam if you don't already have an established board, so Utopia Lightning is an out to anything. And I got this Royal Rare Utopia Prime, which if I get its effect off after judgmenting or warning striking something, it's gonna be memes. But mainly you just use this as you overlay on top of Utopia so that you can get a 4 material Zeus with a rank 4 Xyz. Also, something to consider is Heavy Storm Duster. We'll see how prevalent or how necessary background move is, because again, there's no really dangerous floodgates besides summon limit, and like this deck doesn't really care about summon limit that much, to be honest. Summons more on the opponent's turn than your turn, to be frank. So and Sarah's unaffected by trap cards, so I don't think this will be necessary in this specific deck. So for a deck that I've already done an in-depth deck profile on my channel, I'll try to keep the explanations brief. So if you want a detailed explanation on what cards do and what the general strategy is, I'll link the video there so you can have a more detailed explanation. Alright, next up, we know we're doing Sharks. Again, this is another deck where you lost Desires and it lost, you know, White Mirror kind of hurts. That was one of the better extenders, but it's okay because Sharks is a deck where there's so many level 4 water extenders that you literally just replace the Desires and White Mirrors with more extenders, like Sea Nettle, and there's no copy of for more a third Crystal Shark, you know, a third Leaf Fish that I didn't have room for before, Lantern Shark. So, fun fact, I didn't mention it in my Shark deck profile, but Buzzsaw Shark can summon Lantern Shark from deck, and that itself is a Nash Knight because they can be treated as level 5s. So, yeah, that's something I added later. Yeah, I mean, this is basically just spam water monsters without spam rank 4 Xyz. Kraken is really good going into boards. Zeus is really good going into boards. You know, Bahamut Shark is one of the decks that can play around the Nibiru just by making Toad. And I mean, yeah, this is a pretty straightforward game plan. honestly. Standard hand traps, even these as the 38th and or 39th and 40th card. Yeah, also Zeus is broken. So many ways to make it with this deck. Finally, we got bees. Well, this is gonna be a lot. Well, the main thing that bees lost is losing Beetrooper Descent as a searchable extender off Stinglancer is one thing. But like, there's another festival where DPE is essentially banned because no Fusion Destiny. So we compensated by going for a different combo route. You could. This is very similar to the deck I used during the Link Festival, to be honest. And I have a couple combo tutorials on what to do there. You basically end on Invincible Atlas plus Seraphim Papillion reviving Sting to add a Arbalest and have a Flying Sting set. There's a Scary Moth combo that's available too, but I'm not sure how good a Winda is yet without seeing the meta. There might be a lot of backrow decks that don't care about it, but also that combo also dies to interruption and you can't really go for it if you get hand trapped even once. And the main difference I included here is we're running Twin Bow, the attack. I don't even know what this thing is called. Twin Bow the Attacker. This is basically just an insect extender that locks you into insects, which is fine now since as for your turn 1 combo you pretty much only go into insects, so it's fine. Just be careful for turns like 2 and beyond that your main line of play should be trying to kill your opponent with access code, and obviously you can't do this with access code. Or you can't make access code when you're locked into insects with this. But at the same time, we do have to discard for Pico Felina, so if you're going for that line, you can just use it as a discard. It's also a level 3, so there are occasional times where you could make this with Scale Bomber or this with like a Goki pull into Cicada King, which is it's marginal. Honestly though, I'm not sure this is. We could play a. You could play Baron, just so you can make Baron with Stinglancer and Ash too. That's probably will come up just as often. Or Sting. Wait, holy shit! I'm realizing new stuff as I go. Sting the Poison plus Pin the Bullseye plus Stinglancer is a Baron. So yeah, just play Baron in that spot. Yeah. Oh right, I didn't play Baron during Link Festival because it was a Link Festival. That's why. Okay, yeah, you should be running Baron in this slot. Alright, hopefully between these 6 decks, you'll find something or some kind of inspiration on what to play for this event. Earn those gems. I'm definitely going to be trying all of them, see how each of them work, and I'll report back later during the event. Oh, hell, I might even go for this title, just cause, if we have time at the end of the month after hitting Diamond 1.